All right, guys. So let's see. Today, what we're going to start is we're going to start a long journey of building out a whole system in this new, in my layout system for laying out a foundation. Let me just show you where we are, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to just fire up the app as is. Go ahead and start this guy up. We don't actually need to be doing any authoring. So where we are right now is we've got our work plane here. We call it the stage. It's the the field that we're working in, and our job is we have been given a foundation to lay out in this field. So imagine like a blueprint for a shed that needs a concrete slab or something like that. What we ultimately need to do is set out some strings that will be a square or a rectangle with 90-degree corners and the way we want it. So what we have right now so far is we've got some tools up here. So if I've got the orbit tool selected, if I left click and drag, you see the orbit. If I've got the pan tool selected and I left click and drag, you can see we pan around on the ground plane. Zooming is as expected. You can zoom in and out. I gotta fix some things with that. All right, let's get into the tools let's get into cool stuff now. So we've got batter boards. So we'll start out. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lay out. We can add a batter board here, add a few batter boards. We can rotate these batter boards around. We can reposition them, rotate this one. Set this one over. Oh, good example. I want to delete one. So let me look at this. So I've got some buttons to delete those two. Next, now that we got batter boards out there, we can actually add strings between them. So if I come in here, you can see I get a little blue dot. I can add a string over to here, add a string over to here, and add a string over to here. Cool. I don't have my erase tool set up. So this is where we're at. We can add batter boards, we can add strings, and we can manipulate a few things. What we want to get to is we want to get this thing going, this tape measure. So right now, there is no tape measure. So let's talk through that. We're going to build this whole system out in these series of videos. And so this first video, we're just going to kind of lay the groundwork. And then next, we'll build the entities. And then after that, we'll probably do some PMs with some VMs. And then on the other side, we'll do some use cases, yada, yada, yada. All right. Let's talk about what it takes to have a tape measure. Ultimately, what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to click on one of these batter boards, for example, and I want to click and I want to drag out a tape measure. Or I want to come over here and grab a point at the string and click and drag a tape measure off of that. Or even more complicated, I want to, let's say I add another batter board in here. Let's put one over here and let's put a string between these two guys. Put a string across here. I want to be able to add a tape measure from this intersection, drag that off, and be able to measure stuff with it. And finally, I want to be able to, this is our starting stake down here. We haven't really talked about that. But I want to be able to pull a tape measure off of this starting stake. So it's going to be some complicated interactions to figure out where we started. But let's break it down. Let's see what we're working with. So I'm going to flip over to my Wacom paper. Where's that? Bamboo paper. And we're going to sketch a few things. So let's think through what it takes to add a tape measure. Let's start out with the simple scenario of the stake, right? So over here on our work plane, we got a stake sitting here, right? So that's looking down. So we're only going to worry about this in 2D coordinates. That's all we have to worry about. We're not, the tape measure can't go up and down. We're not going to worry about the Y axes in Babylon. All of our math, all of our entities, use cases, that's all in 2D space, X, Y, planar space. All right, so we got our stake over here. Let's throw, I don't want a color wheel. How did I get a color wheel? I almost want a color. So next thing I want to do is you can imagine that as a user, I'm going to come in here. As I get my mouse over this thing, there's going to be some sort of indicator that shows I'm near this, maybe a little dot or something appears. I want to click, and I want to drag out like this. Okay, and when I'm doing that, I want to see like a little tape measure kind of stretching out right through here. So we're gonna have a little tape measure body over here, and we're gonna drag out. Now this point over here this is fixed, right? Once you've stuck that on there, you're gonna have to delete the tape measure, I think, to get to move that. It's fixed. You're gonna hook your tape. It's just like in the real world. You hook your tape over something and you pull it out. Now, as you're dragging, your mouse is going to be out here. Now, this, as a user, you could be, swinging this way or this way, which will result in, this guy coming out this way or this guy coming out this way, right? As you swing it around. So there's a couple ways we could think about it. We could think about this in polar coordinates, which would be, polar coordinates means you have a radius. So this would be r, and then you've got a theta, which is like this angle would be theta. We could do that because that would be very realistic. You're going to be dragging this thing around and doing a radius as you get further away, and a theta would be, as you drag it around, we could do like arctan 2 with your 2D coordinates to figure out your theta. I think I'm going to keep it simple though. I think what we're going to have is we're going to have a start position. So let me get a different marker color here. Let's get this gray. This is going to be P start, and this is going to be P end. Start and end position. And both of these are going to be 2D vectors, right? We're going to have a put a little bracket here. We're going to have an X and a Y, like this, and like this. X and a Y. All right, that should be more like a square bracket. All right, so we can tell. Oops, let's get that close. I don't know how I opened that. How did I close that? Okay, just like that. All right, so let's come in here and let's. So we know for certain. We're trying to work through what is our line made up of, or our tape measure. So our tape measure. Tape. Oh geez, let's erase that and start over again. So we know that our tape is going to be defined by a P start and a P end, and these are vectors. Vector 2. So those are two easy ones. We do know we need an ID. We need everything to be uniquely identified. So that's how other things can reference it. So let's go ahead and add an ID in here. So that's a string. All right. What else do we need for our entity? We need to know what it's attached to. And the reason why is, let's say somebody comes along here and they delete this stake, right? So we've attached this tape measure to the stake. We don't actually have the way to delete the stake here, but let's say we do. If they delete the stake, the tape measure needs to be deleted. So we need to have something like attached to. Not to. Shush. Attached to. And this is a string because we know our stakes and everything have strings attached. They're also uniquely identified. Another example we wanted to talk about though is let me get to a brown color or something. Another tape measure we wanted to pull off was off of a batter board. So a batter board, let's look down on like this, right? And so this is our batter board here. Now again, let's go back and grab our blue tape. Another example is I want to be able to click on this batter board and drag off this way. All right, so here's tape number 2. So far, I think everything is still good. Our batter board has an ID. So we have an ID for the attached to. We still have a PXPY. We don't really care anything about it. What we will do is, well, okay, here's an issue. I'd like to be able to drag this batter board around as a user. Let's say I pull this batter board down here as a user. As a user, I can drag things around. I can drag the batter boards, or I can rotate them around. Now, if I do that, oops, stick this out. You know what? We have enough math to figure that out. We could figure that out. So essentially what we'll have to do is the batter board, when it rotates, it'll have to check to see if there's any tape measures attached to it. And if so, we need to get this, like, essentially it's kind of like, what it'll be is, it'll be, let me get a different marker color. It'll be some sort of like local position from the batter board's origin is like right here. And so we'll just need to, calculate that and update the batter board start position. So the start position can change. That's good to know. Start position can change. I do want to be able to, let's say you've dropped this tape measure in here and you can see it. At some point we're going to want to delete it, obviously. So I'm imagining like a little, like a little delete button, a little trash can kind of thing like that. And then I also want to be able to grab it. So I want to have some sort of like pan button over here where you can grab the tape measure and you can drag them around, and adjust them and pull them out further and do all that stuff. So we do know that, so now we know that the position of the start is going to be a variable. It can change over time. Position of the end is going to be a variable. It can change over time. ID is not going to change. That's fixed. Attached to, it won't change. Yeah, we're not going to change the attachment point. All right, let's talk about another use case. Go back and grab our batter board color. We're going to do a use case between two strings. So between a string. So strings are designed to run between two batter boards like this. So let's add the string as, I don't know, this color here. And so now we've got a string that runs here. Then what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to come in with my tool. And I'm going to point it here, and there's going to be like a little indicator run along the string. And we're going to drag it off. And we're going to, let it go here. All right. So this is, again, our P start here, and our P end is here. Position start, position end. I still don't think there's much that needs to change. We're still attached to one thing, attached to a string. I know it's it's not a layout string. We are attached to a layout string, a threaded string. So that's cool. I don't think we need to do anything else there. All right, the last one is a little more tricky. Let's say now, let's add one more, set of batter boards here. So we got a set of batter boards going this way now, and a batter board going down here. Let me grab this and move me over to here. Now we've got a string running from here to here now, right? And I want to be able to, we're going to need to be able to take a tape measure. Oops, go back to this. And hit this corner and pull off of here with this. All right, and so again, we got a tape measure. Again, we got a PX, or a P start and a P end. But this time, are we attached to two strings? Yes. And the reason why we need to know that is because if the user deletes either of these strings, this tape measure should get deleted. So I think what that means is this can be an array, or this is an array of up to two. So you could have one thing in there, or you could have two things in there. Okay. Last question. Do we need to keep track of the type? Like, do we need to know, does our tape need to know what it's attached to? Right now we know it's attached to an ID, but do we need to introduce anything else into that tape that says, oh, you're attached to a batter board, or you're attached to a stick, or a corner, or a string? I don't think so. I don't think we need to add that complication. If we come across it, we can add it later, but for right now, we're going to go with this. Cool. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop this video, and in the next video, we will build the entity for this guy. So I'll see you next time.